Could the Miami Dolphins pull off a Terron Armstead blockbuster trade? Well, on today's show, Bleacher Report suggested one with the Kansas City Chiefs that I found really interesting, and we'll talk about it on today's episode. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports, and as I mentioned in the open, Bleacher Report had an article going kind of on and on about trade rumors with each individual team, and they actually suggested a potential trade with the Kansas City Chiefs involving Terron Armstead that I wanted to talk about it. And it's not like the trade we talked about earlier this offseason where the Dolphins trade Tyreek Hill to the Ravens for a draft pick. No, the Dolphins get a player in return in this projected trade, and it's a very good player as well. How about this trade right here, folks? Joe Thuney, the interior offensive lineman from Kansas City, started his career with the New England Patriots, heading to Miami while Kansas City receives Terron Armstead. There is no typos, there's nothing, a pure one-for-one player swap in this projected deal. Before I give you my thoughts, let's hear what Bleacher Report had to say, because they said that for the Dolphins, this would be the chance to solidify their offensive interior line. Finding a solid interior trio has been a challenge since Mike McDaniel got the job, I'd say. Thuney is one of the best there is, but the Chiefs also have to pay Trey Smith this offseason. Their bigger issue is at left tackle, where Thuney was forced to play this postseason. And I'll tell you what, folks, when I read this, my eyes lit up like a Looney Tunes movie. I got excited. I am very intrigued about the possibility of doing this deal. Now, I will say it's probably unlikely and far-fetched that Kansas City would move off of Joe Thuney, but I've also seen crazier things. In the NBA world, Luka Doncic got traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. So you never know, I guess, in this day and age. And before I go into the numbers of each offensive lineman, talk about the fit and why each team may actually look into a deal like this, I want to get your thoughts. Based off the players' notoriety and names, would you do this trade right now? Type A for accept or type D for decline. I am doing it in an absolute instant, and by for any reason, the Kansas City Chiefs call up Miami and say, would you want Joe Thuney for Terron Armstead? I think Chris Greer should say, absolutely, let's get this done. And his next phone call will be to Roger Goodell in the NFL. Because we've talked a lot about the biggest need for this Miami Dolphins football team heading into 2025, and it is on the interior offensive line. They have their right tackle situation figured out in Austin Jackson. Aaron Brewer is under contract through 2026, and he was really good this past year, so you have your center. And you have a situation at left tackle that you can afford to lose Terron Armstead because you took Patrick Paul in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft. But you need to completely overhaul your left guard and right guard spots. And when you compare the two offensive linemen, they are comparable. Armstead had arguably his best season as a Miami Dolphin this past year despite battling injuries. He was a top 5 graded left tackle and offensive tackle by Pro Football Focus, putting up gaudy PFF numbers. But Joe Thuney was as good for Kansas City at left guard, and he's been that good for the Chiefs ever since he signed a massive 5-year, $80 million deal in free agency, leaving the New England Patriots. And the thing that's interesting about Thuney is that he's also versatile. You saw that quote earlier. For this postseason run Kansas City has made to the Super Bowl yet again, Thuney is actually kicked out from left guard to left tackle due to other struggles and injuries at that position for the Chiefs. But when he is purely on the interior, purely playing left guard, he is a top 3 interior offensive lineman in the game of football. He simply does not commit penalties. He is disciplined. He can do it both in the run game and the pass game. He did it for Tom Brady in New England. He did it for Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, and I would love to find the ability to get Thuney into Miami to help shore up that interior offensive line, because it goes from one of your biggest needs and holes on this Dolphins roster to a strength immediately if you have Aaron Brewer and Joe Thuney together side by side on the interior. And we're going to continue this conversation and talk about why the Chiefs and Dolphins would both do this trade. But hit that sub button because we're talking all trade ideas, trade rumors. We got news and more. Hit that sub button right now. We're 22 subscribers away from 67,300. Let's get there on today's show. People may ask, if I'm talking up Joe Thuney this highly, why would the Chiefs do this? Well, the Chiefs do have a massive hole at left tackle. They signed Jawan Taylor. They drafted Wanya Morris. They have yet to be able to find a sustainable blindside protector for Patrick Mahomes. Now, it has not derailed them from making a run to the Super Bowl for the third straight year, and they're looking to win the whole thing for a third straight year this upcoming Sunday. But they have struggled all season protecting Mahomes. It's why their offense has actually taken a dip over this season compared to the last 2 or 3 years. Plus, you heard Trey Smith, who is arguably the top free agent in all football this season, their right guard, who might get paid $20+ million per season. There is a chance with Thuney being an unrestricted free agent in 2026, which means he's under contract for just 1 more year. Kansas City could look to flip him before he's an impending free agent, pay Trey Smith, and figure out their left tackle spot by getting Terron Armstead. It's also not like Joe Thuney is some spry chicken like Trey Smith, 25-26, who is going to be in the NFL for another 8-9 seasons. No, Joe Thuney's 33, so there's a chance that he is only going to play in the NFL for another 2 to 3 seasons, which might dissuade Miami from making this deal, but I really don't think it would because they're trading a left tackle in Armstead, who's also 33 years old. So it's 2 offensive linemen, same age. There's 2 different positions, and each team needs that position. I think it's equal caliber of players, equal caliber of contracts, both having a cap hit in 25, about $22-24 million. Same age, same level of player for their position. It is a trade that it would not shock me if each team visited and called each other up. We'll talk about why it makes a lot of sense for Miami in just a second, but I got to give some major love to Prize Picks. And I mentioned that big game this upcoming Sunday. Oh, yeah, make sure you're hooked up with Prize Picks for the big game because you don't want to miss on the last football game of the season, especially when Prize Picks is giving away a free pick for that game. Patrick Mahomes, more than half a passing yard. Pair that up with 1 more stat projection, get it right, and you win real cash. Make sure you also check out the promos tab to tell any of the Prize Picks Super Sweat Millie big game lineups. If you tell a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you could win a split of $1 million in promo funds. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. As we transition to the Miami Dolphins side of things and why I think they should do this, and you might ask, well, if they trade Armstead, yeah, they're getting an interior offensive lineman, but then they would have a need at left tackle. That's actually not the case whatsoever. You kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. You get a key piece on the interior offensive line, which is your biggest need on this roster, in my opinion, but moving off of Terron Armstead also clears the path for Patrick Paul to become your franchise left tackle, which was the intended meaning when you selected him in the top 55 of this past draft in April. Paul got some PT this past season. It wasn't spectacular. He struggled, but we knew when they drafted him out of Houston, it was more of a developmental pick. He got a lot of experience at college, but he did not play a lot at Power 5. He was in the AAC, takes a step up to the Big 12 in his final year, actually did play well, but we knew that he needed to get more technique, more footwork down, and you hope that his development will take another step forward when he would be potentially your starting left tackle in 2025. And that's also why I think he needs to start this year no matter what. We have a video going out tomorrow talking about cap space moves Miami could make. One of them regards Terron Armstead in a post-June 1st trade or release, but I believe Paul needs to play. When you draft a left tackle in the 2nd round, it is not good business to have him sit for 2 years. Why? Because if he ultimately is an elite offensive tackle, those guys get paid $28-30 million today's NFL. You see what Trent Williams is getting paid? That number is only going to continue to go up. And you want to have that potential game-changing left tackle on your roster on a rookie contract, making that impact longer. You got to give him experience and playing time, and I'd love to see him ride it out. Because remember, he wasn't a first-round pick, so you don't get a 5th-year option. Paul's only under contract for 3 more years, and if you sit him, this year, play him next year, and he's good, well, that means you only have 2 years before you have to pay him. So to me, you got to get him on the football field this season. And if you were to make this Armstead for Thuney trade, your offensive line looks very, very set in stone heading into this upcoming April's 2025 draft. Because Paul would be your left tackle, Thuney would slot in at left guard, you have Brewer at center, right tackle Austin Jackson. So the only position you would need to fill is right guard. You could do it with a veteran free agent like James Daniels. You could go after Will Fries and really make an investment on the interior offensive line. Or you can go towards an NFL draft pick in the first 2 or 3 rounds, which is what I would likely do because you could have him on a cheap rookie contract then. That offensive line would move me. It goes from potentially one of the worst offensive lines in all football to one of the best if you get that projected development that you are expecting from Patrick Paul. That's how game-changing Joe Thuney would be for this Miami Dolphins roster. And I want to get your thoughts on this. That projected offensive line I just showed you, only 4 of 5 starting spots would be filled, but knowing they would draft one, say, in the top 100 draft picks in the first 3 rounds, grade the Dolphins' offensive line if it was that on opening day. Scale it 1 to 10 for me down in the comment section. And before we close out today's show, you might ask yourself, who could be one of those starting right guards? Well, I've got 10 interior offensive line NFL draft prospects that I would have my eyes on. We've talked a lot about these guys. Tyler Booker's the best pure offensive guard, in my opinion, out of Alabama. Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Kelvin Banks Jr., 3 offensive tackles at college that could be forced to play inside at the next level. That would intrigue me at pick 13 or in a trade down situation. But then you got some other names on here. Gray Zabel, one of the winners at the Senior Bowl, rising into the late first round, early second round. Wyatt Millum from West Virginia. And then you've got more or less day 2 picks, maybe early day 3 picks in Tate Ratledge, Willie Lampkin, who's been unbelievable at North Carolina, but undersized, but could be an option in the 3rd or 4th round for Miami. Same thing could be said about Luke Condra and Connor Colby out of Cincinnati and Iowa. You put any of these guys at the starting right guard spot for Miami with those other 4 offensive linemen we just showed, and you have a really good unit heading into 2025. Final word on today's show. I doubt this ultimately happens. And when you project trades, most of them are super far-fetched in the NFL because you just don't simply see as many trades in the offseason when it comes to this league as compared to other leagues like the MLB, NHL, and NBA. But if this was on the table and it was possible, I think Chris Grier should accept it in a heartbeat. Armstead for Thuney. It solves 2 issues for you. Interior offensive line, and it clears the way for Patrick Paul to start at left tackle. The money situation wouldn't even change that much because both players, Thuney and Armstead, projected to be making $22 and $25 million respectively this upcoming season. So to me, there is no downside of making this trade whatsoever. It actually would benefit probably Miami more as a team-building roster scheme than it would Kansas City. We'll see if it ultimately anything transpires. But if anything does transpire, we will have you covered. Make sure you hit that sub button to join the channel because we're having 2 videos go out almost every single day, plus live shows on Tuesdays. Nobody covers you on the Dolphins more and better than us.